Hi friends, it's Aria Zero. A few weeks back, I asked you all to vote on which video you'd like to see from me next, and the one that won was a whole video discussing my Pokemon drag looks. So that's what we're doing here today. I've got 4 Pokemon looks to walk you through, and for each one we're going to talk about the design, the creation process, and then you'll get a little short runway video just kind of showing it off. It's going to be me walking back and forth in my bedroom, so it's a little awkward. The setup for this wasn't perfect, but I made do with what I had. And stay tuned till the end of the video because I've got an important question about a future video I might be planning, but I want to see if there's interest. You could also just skip to the end and see what it is now if you care more about that. But yeah, so stay tuned for that, and I hope you enjoy. Let's talk about the design process for this Reuniclus dress, because clearly this is not what I'm wearing exactly. It was a whole process, so I'm going to talk about how I got from A to B, and then I'm going to actually give you a little tour of the garment. So this was the first dress I ever made, which is a little ambitious, but I was taking a sewing class, so I was like, now is the time. Learn how to do everything, so then later things aren't as scary, that doesn't work for everyone. It did work for me, but just because it works for me does not mean it will work for you. So if you know that that's how you function, then great, but otherwise maybe start with a pillow or something. I had a few designs going into the class, but this is what I wanted to make. So we had a long sleeve bodice with, we do have this detail there on the dress, as we can see there. The sleeves were also not detached as they are on me here. The skirt is a 3-tier ruffle skirt with the dots, which I did successfully do. And there was a bow in the back, which I actually did make, but tulle is really awful. This is what the bow looks like now, because I didn't store it very well. I guess I could like fluff it back up, but I'm kind of lazy, and I don't think it adds enough for me to care, so. So the whole vision of this Reuniclus dress was I wanted to be something kind of Lolita Magical Girl inspired. I really wanted to recreate how Reuniclus's arms are gelatinous with something inside. So I was really keen on using some sort of sheer tulle big oversleeve thing. The reason why they're not attached is because the sewing instructor was like, listen, we could try it, but attached sleeves are difficult and you're already doing something ambitious. So what if you make them detached? She actually was talking about getting like a button that would attach them via button, and I ended up just doing elastic detached sleeves because I thought that would be fun and easier. And now I've done these a few times. I do enjoy them. They are very fun. For the skirt, it's a 3-tier ruffle skirt. For the top and the bottom one, I wanted to have the pink as the big ones, and the middle one, I wanted that beige yellow color as the big ones, but I got the different size ratio of each of these circles from the arms, because that was important to me. So the reason why mine is a bit more bluey and less green like the design is because I actually based the color match off of the Unova Sprite, I believe. It was made a bit ago. I know it was a specific picture. It might have actually been the X and Y Sprite, which looks a little bit more blue, and I literally color dropped it and just took screenshots of each color, so I had them to match stuff with in the fabric store, because at that point I also didn't know that much about fabric. I'll give you an in-depth tour of that garment, or of this garment now. This dress is made out of a ton of different kinds of fabric. We've got, basically I went to the bargain section of the fabric store and just color matched with the Sprite of Reuniclus. So we got cheap broadcloth, which we don't use anymore. We've got chiffon, we've got satin, we've got a lining fabric. Is there anything else I'm missing? We've got tulle, ribbon, I used interfacing, and I used heat and bond. This dress was originally patterned from a dress I already had. Actually from 2. Maybe I should take those out and show you. The bodice on this dress was patterned off of this dress, which was a Magic Tea Party dress that I had that I really loved the fit of. Now mind you, this dress was made by people who know how to sew. It also has a zipper in the bodice, or a zipper in the dress in general. And I suck at zippers, so I don't do them. We thrive off of elastic. So we've got this elastic back that's like super stretchy. And then this dress is like on the looser side because of that, so that I can get it on without needing a zipper or anything. So when I made the bodice, I traced around that dress's bodice, cut out the pattern pieces, put it together, but I didn't know much about lining, and I did a lot of stuff over a fall break. if you look at the straps closely, they're actually not in line because I didn't attach everything correctly. I flatlined each pattern piece and then sewed them together. So that's why the seams on the straps are really ugly. And then all of the detail ended up getting top stitched because I didn't know what I was doing. So there's a lot of ugly stitching on the inside because of that. It's actually not that bad, but it's not great. I will still do this because I make things for myself, so it really doesn't matter. As long as I'm fine with it, it's fine. But if I made things for other people, you wouldn't want stuff like that. No. Same with these seams. None of the seams are really finished well, but essentially the bodice is 4 pieces. It's 2 back panels, a front panel, and then this elastic panel, which is just a big rectangle that I put a bunch of channels in. I sewed a bunch of straight lines through and then just put elastic through them, and then it stretches, and then I put some little ribbon in to do all that. The little tulle bows, which are scraggly now, are just safety pinned to the front of the dress, which is like not always the smartest move, but you know, that's what Magic Tea Party did, so I copied them. So the skirt came from this dress, which was not Magic Tea Party, but I loved the 3 tiers. I thought this was really lovely. They have lining between every tier as well. And literally what I did was I hung this dress on a little clothing stand. I took a measuring tape and went around the edge of every single tier of ruffles at the base so I could get the dimensions of the ruffle, like the length of it, before it got all ruffled at the top. Because these are basically a bunch of rectangles. And so the bottom 2 tiers ended up being the same size, and the top one ended up being a little bit smaller. So I wrote all that down. I did the same thing with the lining, wrote all that down, and then we had to do this. So I cut out a bunch of rectangles of each fabric. You can see that the second tier is a broadcloth both sides, but the first and third tiers have this little lippy, and it's broadcloth on the inside and chiffon on the outside. That's because chiffon sucks. Chiffon doesn't suck, but it sucked to work with as a first thing. I interfaced one of these sides. I think I interfaced all the chiffon so that it would just have a little bit more strength to it, wouldn't be as flimsy to work with. And the other thing was I had to put this so it wouldn't be a see-through. All of the broadcloth basically had to be doubled so it wouldn't be see-through, which is why we don't like broadcloth. So then I had all these giant rectangles and I had to put these circles on. And these circles were traced out of like cups, like a mug or something. I just put it on the fabric and tried to trace it. This satin, so flimsy, so slippery, so evil. I hated it. It was awful. So how did I end up doing this? Oh, I remember. I interfaced the entire piece of satin, heat and bond interfacing. So you just plop it across the fabric, glue dots down, go over it with an iron, and it sticks. So I did all that. Then I ended up tracing all the circles on. Then I cut all the circles out. And then, we're not done yet. I had to mathematically place them on every single ruffle, cut out more fusible, but this time it's heat and bond, just webbing, fusible webbing, which is basically just glue. It's like heat activated glue. So you cut it out, you put it on the thing, you iron it to the circles, you peel off the back, stick the circle down where you want it to be, and you iron the circle down and it activates the glue again, and then it fuses. But then that thing you'll see in a later dress can be a little flimsy if you don't stitch it down, so I had to go around and satin stitch around every single circle, which a satin stitch is just a really, really short stitch length with a wide zigzag. You can barely see that it's a stitch. It looks more like embroidery than it does actually like sewing stitches. And yeah, I had to do that for every single circle on this dress, which was a lot. This is all lining. These are all rectangles as well. For ruffling, you have to, I did the method where you do 2 basting stitches that are parallel and then you pull them. Clearly my ruffles weren't actually done at the right length. I'm bad at remembering to account for seam allowance, and I didn't really do that on here, so you can see, if you get it close, you can actually see some of those stitches still, but because the top gets overlapped with the other ruffle, I don't really care that much. These are the sleeves, and they were made out of tulle and elastic and ribbon. It's just a little elastic that's stitched in with this ribbon here. It's fed through, and that goes up on the arm, wherever you want it to be. And then I started to realize that I actually like how it looks if I leave this open. but that wasn't the plan initially. The plan was to try to like emulate the bubbliness. So we did a little drawstring with this ribbon that then I could put in, if that makes sense. This tool was evil though. This tool would have been fine, but I decided it wasn't the exact shade of green I wanted, so I dyed it. And that was a mistake, because then you have to wait for it to dry, and then it gets all wrinkly, and tulle is just... Once tulle's wrinkly, it's a pain to unwrinkle, I think. Tulle really sucks to work with. I don't suggest it. The headpiece, which, we have tulle, we have broadcloth, we have stuffing, we have ribbon, and it's just a headband. It's just a headband that I've glued everything to, basically. You can see that I sewed around the edges of this, but I left the edges, like, kind of rough. These were sewn triangles that I just stuffed with some batting, and then I glued everything together. So now we're on to Magnemite, Magnezone, Magneton dress. Now this is the only one where you're going to be getting the horizontal treatment. The rest of them you'll be getting a little vertical side by side with the design. I didn't actually sketch a design for this garment, so I'm just going to talk you through the vision, and then I'll get all close and personal with it for you. This garment was made very spontaneously. I was re-debuting in drag, and I had decided to do Electric by Katy Perry, and of course, I'm like, I need a thematic outfit. None of my outfits really go with Electric by Katy Perry, so I was like, well, what can I do? It's a Pokemon, it's electric type, Pikachu makes sense, but like, I don't really want to do a Pikachu outfit. And I was thinking of what my favorite electric type was, and it's, if you know me, you know it's the magnets. You know it's the magnets! So, I went to the fabric store with my friend, and I was like, let's just look around. I was like, if I could find like a metallic-y silver fabric. There's a hair. So I went to the fabric store with my friend, and I was like, if we could find like a metallic-y silver fabric or something that's not crazy expensive, we could get that. I can get some red and blue. I can make some magnets out of foam to attach to the side. It'll be great. And so we found this one. It was called Liquid something. It was on sale. So it was like $4 a meter after all the sales. So we bought this, and then I bought some, I'll show you this more in depth after. I was like, I want to line the bottom with red and blue because I knew for the song I wanted to do spinning, so it would flare up and you could see that, but also I wanted to do a thing where I stick my legs up in the air and I kick them. And I'm like, I know the dress is gonna fall down, so it's red and blue for that. That's really fun. So yeah, this design was, let's go find some silver fabric and stick some magnets to it and hope for the best. It was supposed to be Magnezone, but it really is serving Magnemite. This in the front with this zigzag lace-up moment with the elastic front. That was actually originally the back of the dress, but I liked how this fit and I liked how it looked like this because it was different, but technically this dress is on backwards and I wear it backwards from how it was intended to be made. That's the main vision with this. The whole design was just like, oh my gosh, I'm re-debuting in a week. I'm doing Electric by Katy Perry. I don't have anything yellow. I don't have anything Pokemon that's magnet-y themed. What am I gonna do? And so we made this come to fruition. We're doing the close and personal details on Magnezone. This one's gonna be much faster than Reuniclus because this one is really just same bodice pattern. You'll notice that I use the same bodice pattern for everything now after the Reuniclus dress because that's how it works. Just the neckline is a little bit deeper, and then this actually ended up being the back. Because after I put everything together, I was like, just kidding. So this is what the front actually looks like. This is just the elastic back, as I normally do, with a ribbon through it, except I zigzagged the colors, and the ribbon I actually just stitched 2 colors of ribbon together so that the red would be going through the red and the blue would be going through the blue, except you really have to like set it up to like sit properly. This fabric was fine. The main flaws with this dress is I made it in about 2 days. I didn't let the skirts hang. So this is just a circle skirt that I cut out, and then I actually did bag line it. I did 2 half circles, one out of blue broadcloth and one out of red broadcloth, which again, we don't love broadcloth, we don't use it anymore. This is made about a year ago. Actually, probably exactly a year ago from when I'm recording this. And I just sewed it to the circle skirt, and then we sewed everything together, and it's ugly, as you can see, it's ugly. But because I didn't let the skirt hang, when you cut out circle skirts, you're cutting things on the bias, which is the stretchy part of the fabric. And you're supposed to let it hang, I think, for at least 24 hours, just so gravity will pull it down and it will fall into how it will sit, if that makes sense. Gravity will stretch it, it will sit that way because gravity's just on all the threads. And so this skirt's hem is not very even. When I first made this skirt, the lining did not peek out the bottom. Now the lining do peek out the bottom as well, because everything's just stretched over time. What I might have considered doing is actually like doing a little roll hem on it, so I could bag line it and then roll it just to like finish that edge differently. That could have been nice. These magnets, initially my plan was to cut little EVA foam ones, and then they looked really small and dinky. So what I ended up doing was I got this fabric. I think I might have gotten two fabrics. I think I got like a silvery organza and something that felt like a garbage bag. And I cut out this shape on both of them. I got some wide ribbon and sewed that to the bottom of them. And then I sewed them together and stuffed them with batting, and then really badly sewed them to the sides of the skirt. I am a really bad hand sewer, so I often try to cheese things and just do things on the machine when I really shouldn't. So I did do this on the machine when it could have been a much nicer hand sew, but I need to practice my hand sewing. But I just did two of those, and now I've got these big floppy stuffed magnet pillows. The issues are though, because organza frays really badly, and so does this garbage bag material, and I didn't do the perfect sewing job. Which one is it on? This one you can see is like, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but it's starting to bust a little bit, and even the ribbons are starting to bust a little bit just because I didn't allow myself enough seam allowance, I think. But it's fine. It's fine. And then the lining on the bodice, I actually did properly. You can see where the stitches are. There's a stitch there, there's a stitch there, and then these got attached around the edges, so these actually line up nicer. This lining is just lining from another dress I made that wasn't Pokemon related. And it's just nice, and it's a dark navy blue. You don't really see it, so yeah. But I think that's really all there is to this Magnezone Magnemite dress. It was a really fast idea. I didn't even sketch it up as you saw, so yeah. It's Glimmora time, and we've got the sketch up for this one because this one got a sketch again. It's not a Gorgina sketch. Again, the main thing when I do sketches is I want the shapes, I want the vibe, and then I can take that with me so I kind of know what I'm getting into. You'll see once again, we've got a headpiece, but this time I didn't do it. That's a trend in my designs. I design things with headpieces and then I don't make them because I'm lazy. So this one is gonna have a little Glimmora crown that I didn't do. It's also gonna have little two yellow glowing eyes on the waistband. It doesn't have that because this waistband is detachable and I use it for multiple things, and honestly it doesn't work super well for this look because this look has gone through a journey, so that's kind of fun. So we can talk about that. I'll show you more of that in detail when I actually show you everything. But this is what it looks like. It's kind of sticking out awkwardly right now because it wasn't made well, because this dress went through a journey. So with this design, the main vision was I wanted to be Glimmora. So the skirt is made to look like Glimmora when it's flared open. So it has 6 of the blue petals with the special ends. This is to shape of Glimmora. And then I have purple petals underneath. Glimmora actually has a teal, like this teal color petals as well, but that just made the skirt too bulky. And then the top is just made to look like 2 kind of skinnier Glimmora petals that go up over my shoulder. As you can see, it droops now. It didn't used to, but there. You have to like roll it, or like you have to like bend it to fit properly. I could have done it with wire though, but it's just EVA foam in all of these. I'll show you that in more detail after though. But this dress has been modified since its original creation. It was initially 3D. All of the petals were essentially giant pillows. And it was just really heavy, and I performed in it at one point, and it wasn't a performance outfit. You couldn't, because the skirt was too heavy to sustain itself, and the way it attached, because the skirt and the bodice are separate, the way it attached didn't work, so I've changed that as well. And yeah, I did perform in it, and it was falling off, and then I tried to untie it, and I was stuck in it. So I was like, let's release it, and I just didn't want to. So I stopped using it, and then I was like, I want to be able to use this, and I modified it and I will show you what it looks like now. The other thing I would like to get into, or I'd like to talk about with Glimmora before we move into the creation of the garment is, for one of my numbers, I terastallized into an electric type. So we have this, it's a little 2D electric Terra crown that did attach to my head, and this was used for the Glimmora look as well. Here she is. This is Glimmora in her current state of mind. This is not always what Glimmora looked like. You'll notice the legs and undershirt are not here. I didn't make those. I bought those. That was easier to buy than make and cheaper to buy than make. Sometimes you have to think about that when you're making outfits and cosplays. If you're not competing in them, if you're not being judged on your craftsmanship or anything like that, sometimes you can just buy things and it'll be faster and better. So let's talk about the skirt first. We'll talk about the skirt first because the skirt has gone through a lot. You will see the skirt has these little snaps on them. They have all these weird things, but that's not always what the skirt looked like. I'm actually gonna move my tea. So this is Glimmora. You can see what she looks like, kind of. I can't even get her all on camera. But if you spread her out flat, she actually looks like Glimmora because each one of these petals was made individually. Basically, I made a pattern piece of the petal shape, which is actually more in line with this shape. This is basically what the pattern piece looked like. Then this light blue part, I made another pattern piece for that in line with this. So then I cut out the blue, I cut out the light blue separately from the dark blue, and I sewed them together. So that was fun. So each petal was cut out and sewn. It was double-sided, so it was bag-lined again, where I just cut two of them and sewed around the edge and turned them inside out. The fingers were a pain because they were really, I'm calling these fingers because that's what I always call them, but they're just like really skinny little details, and they're not perfectly even because seam allowance. Seam allowance is the name of the game today, I guess, because I'm bad at remembering to do it. So that's why this is much bigger and this is much bigger than these two. They really should have been even, but it's fine. It gives the effect I needed it to give. Over top of one layer, and I really should have done it on both layers just because you can see the underside when I spin, I put a layer of organza over top that was like a little light blue. So it gets a little bit of shine and sparkle because Glimmora shines and sparkles like that because she's kind of crystal-y-ish. Initially, these petals were not flat like this. These petals, inside all of them, this black stuff in there, you see that? That's just like a thin layer of EVA foam that's cut to the petal shape and then put inside of each one. So these petals initially were just stuffed like giant pillows. And then it looked lumpy. So then I made the EVA foam and put it over top to smooth the tops out, but then it would have that 3D kind of garlic clove shape that Glimmora has. And then this had a waistband, and that's how this was done. These were all sewn to a waistband, including these purple ones. So there was about 10 petals sewn to this waistband with a little string in it to tie it tighter. Not good. Not good. Don't do that. Don't do that. It was too heavy. I'd perform in it, and it would fall down because this didn't get attached to the bodice. It was just, it was a two-piece with a belt covering the gappage. So I ended up going in and modifying it. And the strategy I ended up going with was I got this snap tape. And so the way it works is one side is the innie snap and one's the outie snap, and you can just snap it together. And so what I ended up doing to attach these after I gutted all of them of their batting, I did a little pinking shear around the edge to help prevent the fraying. It's still fraying a bit, but what can you do? I actually sewed all of the petals together, which I sewed through the EVA foam. And they weren't all sewn together before. They were all floppy before. So I sewed all 6 of these together, and then I sewed 2 sets of 2 for the purple ones. And then I used speed sew glue on the snap tape. With the snap tape, I kept them snapped together. I put speed sew glue on one of the sides, and for example, this would line up here. You can kind of see. I speed sew glued this, attached it to here, then took off the top 2. That's not exactly true, but basically took off the top 2, speed sewed that, and glued it here. Sometimes what I tried to do was I tried to have the add glue here, except it was on this snap tape. And then I press this into it to kind of get the vibe, and then I'd hold it down. Speed sew is really good, especially when you're making last minute changes to things, because I really couldn't sew this on except for hand sewing it because I would sew through the front then, which we didn't want to do. So all these lower snaps on the skirts attach to the purple ones. The upper snaps actually attach to the bodice. So the bodice can now be attached to the skirt. It didn't used to be able to, but now it can. So like this one would go here with that upper one. And then that bottom one would go with like this snap here. And then you have it all together and it stays together. So that was the process. And then you can unsnap it. Part of the reason for doing this as well was because I was bringing this garment, I was bringing this costume on a trip and I needed it to fit in a suitcase. We'll talk about the bodice now. The bodice didn't used to have these snaps on this. This is the same situation with the glue. The back of the bodice also did not used to have this elastic back. It used to be open and you just thread the back through with a little ribbon and tie it on. And it's a very similar situation. I patterned from the bodice pattern that I've used for everything else, except that I cut the straps off. So it's a strapless top, but because this elastic is so tight, it don't go down. It don't go down. And then this, I kind of made a new pattern from the pattern where I got that petal shape again. I did the little fingers, and then this has EVA foam through it as well to help keep the structure a little bit. It might have been smart to use wire in here because wire would be a little bit stronger, a little less floppy, but this feels nicer on the body, I think. It does get sweaty though. It does get sweaty. Oh, and you'll see on this, these are also on the skirt petals, but I tried to do a little satin stitch to just give some highlight detail of that lighter blue color. It's fine. It's really only noticeable close up. I'm not mad I did it, but I don't think I think I could have done a tighter satin stitch, but I think I was also running out of thread. I don't have the headband for this one. I can't find it. I'm in the process of cleaning my drag stuff up, so I only have the top, but the headband is not that exciting. This is the exciting part. The headband is how it attaches to the head. This is my Terra crown, my electric type Terra crown. This was made about 2 days before I needed it for a show, so we've made it 2D. And by we, I mean, I actually got a lot of help on this one from my friend Bob, who some of y'all may have seen. I've been teaching her how to play Pokemon. She basically made this whole thing. I gave her a picture, I bought the materials, and I said go for it. And so she patterned out, based off of the picture, what the electric Terra crown looked like in 2D, cut it all out from this glittery paper, and then put it together. I did this bit, and I made it function. So she made the light bulb, I added in the little front jewel, the little Terrapagos jewel, and then I made it function. She put a little bit of ribbon around the edges to block it, but it's basically, what'd she do it out of? I think it's a folder base, like a paper folder or cardboard. No, it's a cardboard base. It's a cardboard base with paper glued to it. The fun thing about how this works is I have a black headband that you wear during the whole performance. You just have this little headband hidden underneath your hair. It's fine. In this headband, there are some earth magnets, and then in the actual piece, there are some earth magnets. And I cut this to be the same size as the headband on my head. And then, it's not perfect. It's not perfect. It does wobble a little bit. During the performance, when you're ready to terastalize, you pick this up, and you just whoop onto the headband, and it attaches itself, and it stays on your head, which is really fun. Can you do like jump splits? No. Can you do cartwheels? No. However, it gives a good effect for a little theatrical performance moment. It only really fell off near the end for me when I was like doing stuff on the floor. And it fell off, and because I am a little Pokemon geek, what I did when it fell off is I pretended to faint, because when a Pokemon faints, they lose their terastals, right? And then I put it back on really quickly just to do like a final end pose kind of bit. But it worked out, and that's just magnets. It's just magnets. The main issue is it's holding the whole thing from here, and because you're moving, if gravity wants to pull it forward, it will. If the wind pulls it this way, it will. Which is why we have also these little support triangles to make it wobble less, but it's not... I'm sure there's a better way we could do it. But considering we made this in 2 days, and I think I finished making all the attachments function on the day of the show, it worked out pretty good, and I was pretty happy with it. gonna talk about the design as we do. This sketch is the worst of all of them. Because it was a sketch that I made in 30 minutes and then ran to the fabric store while I bust there, but got there as fast as I could, got the fabric, and started to work on this dress. So my Munna Musharna outfit was made for my show Superstar. I was struggling to find songs I wanted to perform or ideas, and then I found a song called Dream by Circus P that I really wanted to perform, and I was like, well, what can I do for an outfit for this? I don't really have anything really dream-like, and I was like, Munna Musharna, the dream Pokemon. And I looked at them, I quickly imagined an idea, ran to my tablet, scribbled this up, that's why it's really janky, and then was like, okay, let's go. And I went to get the fabric. So obviously, this is the vision. The dress is kind of there. The pink I ended up getting for this fabric is a lot more light than in my picture, but it is color matched to Munna. So the vision with this outfit was to combine both Munna and Musharna. So the skirt is very Munna. We've got the flowers from Munna. We've got the color of Munna. So this is literally Munna. And the top is inspired by Musharna because Musharna is very purple and she's got a lot of scalloped details on her. Their body segments into scallops. So that's also why we've got scallops on the skirt, scallops on here, scallops on the sleeves. This is my first time doing sleeves and they're really janky. And yeah, and then the tulle boa was made to mimic the smoke, like the incensey smoke that comes out of Musharna. So that's what that is for. My color matching was to pictures of the Pokemon rather than my sketch. My sketch, I was just like, let me just grab some colors and go for it. And then when I actually got to the fabric store, I pulled out pictures of them and was like matching everything. So yeah, that's how we got here. Pink hair, because I already had pink hair. I do the white socks and white boots because I have them and they're pretty neutral. My other option would be black, but it would be really cute to get like a purple or a pink or get like something more matchy-matchy, like a purple sock and purple boot or a purple sock and pink shoe or something. I don't know. There's a lot of other things I could do, but the white is once again kind of like Reuniclus. White is neutral to go with what I have out of things I already have, you know? Now we're doing the thing we do where I show you more in depth how I made this. And I'll spoiler alert, the back is broken and I've rigged it together for recording this. And I will talk more about that and how I plan to fix it. The boa is gonna be really simple to talk about. I made this pink tulle boa to match the little fumies that Musharna gives off because it's cute and it goes with it. And I'm not gonna get into full detail of how I actually made this because I followed a tutorial, which you can see here a little bit, by Athena Lawton on YouTube. I'll link it. It was an amazing tutorial. I made this the night before the show. And like, if I had more time, I could have probably made it a little cleaner. But the nice thing in this tutorial they talk about, they're like, it could be a project where you do super meticulously, but also it's tulle and it just has to be fluffy. So if you cut some corners or if it's a little rough, that's fine too. That's fine too, because it's just gonna be fluffy and voluminous. I also clearly didn't separate all these layers to make it as fluffy as I could have. The one thing I will say, you do use fishing wire in this tutorial to pull the ruffles as opposed to doing the ruffles the standard way. You use fishing line and you basically zigzag over it and pull it, which is really smart. Unless you're me and you're like sitting on the bed pulling this fishing line through being like, why is this taking so long? Because you've been pulling it out of the other end the whole time. Don't do that. It sucks. If that happens to you though, what I ended up actually doing, because I thought I was gonna have to redo the whole thing, which I really didn't want to do. I took it back to the machine and I had the side that was fine and done going this way and the side that was pulled out going this way. And I just held that fishing line with my hand as I sewed it. I held the fishing line as I sewed it and let it feed onto the fishing line, and it was auto ruffling itself basically. It was pulling itself and just bunching up because the fishing line is so slippery. I just had to make sure it stayed between the zigzag stitch and it just kept fixing itself and just ruffling itself. So I ended up not actually having to do that much work. It ended up being really easy. And honestly, doing that with the fishing line from the start, if you could figure out how to make that work, might be faster than having to pull it all through. But pulling it all through isn't going to be that much of an issue if you're not silly like I am. Watch Athena's tutorial because they do a really good job at explaining all the details and they're cool. Now it's garment time. This is the bodice. There are issues with this bodice, and we will talk about them. There are issues with this dress in general, because this is a story of not leaving yourself enough time to finish a garment before thing starts, because you just overbooked yourself. This is the bodice. This is what it looks like. It cute, right? Except there's a lot of issues. Loose threads I didn't trim, of course. The lining doesn't match up at the base. It's satin that I had to interface because it was slippery. And the major issue with this bodice is I got to the show, and before the show had even started, the back busted. These busted out, and I hadn't even performed yet. So we still had some that were in place. This side is basically fine. This side, not fine. Do I really understand what happened with these little things? No, because they're sewn in. My guess is that the stitch length was short, or just like hit in bad spots on it, or like too close to the edge of them, and just ripped them out, which sucked. So my plan for fixing this is I'm actually just gonna cut all these out. And it was cute because it was a little open back thing, but this dress I was wearing with long hair, so it hid this anyways. I'm just gonna add an elastic panel to the back. I'm gonna cut these out and replace it with an elastic panel, and that will be that. I used the same pattern for, you can probably recognize some of the pieces in here, except I cut this one into like a little cute heart shape, a little sweetheart neckline. You'll also notice my sides don't line up with these. The scallops are weird. There's just a lot of weirdness that goes on in how I made this because I didn't make it very well. There's a lot of top stitching. I'd also never done scallops before, and it was just a rough time. My scallops are a little pointy. This one, I guess I cut into, like, it's just, there's a lot of issues with this one. But again, I made it from me. I didn't make it for the main stage of RuPaul's Drag Race. I didn't make it to be judged on. I made it for a performance, and I made it in about 3 days. So, for that, and for the fact that I've never done scallops, I've never done sleeves before, I think I did pretty good. These sleeves were not made properly. They are literally just little flaps that I just sewed to the straps. They don't go all the way around because of that. Because they're not cut in sleeve patterns, but it gave me the effect I needed. All of these little pink ruffles are stuffed with batting, and the reason I did that was because I thought it would mask some of the lumpiness of the scallop if it looked puffy, and I think that worked. And then they were top stitched down. I wanted to do little pearl details, but time. This is interfacing on the purple satin. I just have like roll hems going on all these. This don't line up, but that's okay. Like, it's not sewed together because honestly, a big part of sewing is geometry puzzles. And sometimes when you're just going through it and you're just trying to make things happen, you didn't plan very far in advance because you're on time crunch, you don't think everything through. And I just like didn't know how to attach these without actually sewing it down. But it's not really an issue because no one's gonna see this. There's so many rough edges. But the effect on stage worked, and that's what mattered. This is the skirt. This skirt is a little high-low moment. I love a high-low moment because also, if you're doing high-low, if you mess up your hem a little bit, it's really hard to tell because it doesn't have to look even because it's not supposed to be even. And if you do a high-low, the high is always gonna be high and the low is always gonna be low, even if gravity comes into play. This is one, again, a rushed job. The scallops on these are a little bit nicer, but the issue is even when I pressed them, sometimes they were folding in on themselves. So what I would do to fix this is I would actually have gone around the edge of this whole thing and just top stitched everything down just to keep them a little smoother. These flowers are only heat and bonded with that glue that I was talking about from Reuniclus to the dress, and it's lifting. They are lifting because heat and bond is not perfect. And as you'll remember on Reuniclus, I did a little satin stitch around the edge of the circles. That's what I should have done here. I didn't have time or energy to, so I didn't, but it is the plan to go back through and satin stitch around the edges of all these and then iron them again just to like reactivate the glue. But it's lined with gorgeous purple. If you're doing a high-low, you really do want to add a lining in because otherwise you will see the back like the back of the fabric, which doesn't always look cute. No. Nice thing is it was springtime. Spring fabrics were on sale because they're shifting their season. So these are like Eastery spring colors that were really easy to find. This was, again, I just color matched with Munna Musharna to get these colors. And it's just a waistband and a circle skirt that was cut into a high-low. I did mathematically go through and cut all the scallops out evenly, but you can see like some of these ones are like folded in. Like this one looks triangular, and it is just because it's folded in on itself. So that's, again, where I want to go around the edge and fix that. These were initially going to be 3D. I was going to make them look like little 3D pillows. No. But yeah, so there's a lot of issues with this dress. There's a lot of issues with Munna Musharna that just needs to be touched up and fixed. If I wasn't doing the show the day that I finished this dress, I would have done that. But I didn't leave myself enough time. And that's kind of that. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope it was informative. I hope it was at least fun to kind of see and hear about the process. If you enjoyed it, you could leave a like, or if you really liked it, you could subscribe, and comment down below if you would be interested in seeing me do a video where I make a Pokemon drag look from scratch. If there's enough interest, I'll do some community polls where y'all can vote on which Pokemon you'd like to see me do. And yeah, I've got a few in the back of my mind that I've been thinking about making looks for, so I'll put those all up if there's interest, and then we can do a whole video of me making a costume from the first step, which would be fun. So yeah, thank you again so much, and I'll see you in another video, okay? Bye-bye.